Okay, today is August 18th, 2021. Call meeting order of the Advisory Committees of 109 Board. It's 4:33 p.m. I guess first order of business is a review of the minutes. Has everybody had the opportunity? If so, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the July 21st meeting?
I'll motion.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Blue, second by Ms. Leonard. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Hello?
Aye.
Hi, this is Craig. I'm in the car. I'm just on audio only, so I'll just listen and talk if I have to.
Okay. Thank you. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Flashing back and forth between agenda. So we have a discussion item from the 109 board report. Is Samantha Troutman's household hazardous waste transport service. And Pete, please share with me what you feel is open for discussion on this, because I know I have an opinion. I think most people are allowed to have an opinion.
So is Samantha here? I don't see Samantha here in the queue. If it's okay, can we come back to this later in the agenda on the chance that she would be able to be in attendance? I know she's very passionate about it and would like to be a part of that discussion.
Sure.
I had no problem postponing the discussion if she is going to be present.
Hopefully.
She was sent the link. I don't know. I didn't hear from her or anything, but.
Well, we can table this then for either the next meeting or later in this meeting.
Can you give us just a quick idea of what it's about?
She is asking for permission to, I guess, service residential dwellings and remove their household hazardous waste and take it to the has-been and dispose of it for free, which creates multiple concerns over the type and amount of regulations put in place by DOT and solid waste on hazardous waste transportation. There's just a lot of legal issues, and I'm sure Sandra would understand once you combine things, you take ownership of that. It's a whole nother world.
Is she doing this for a profit motive?
Here's Samantha. She just popped in on them.
Hi.
Good. Welcome, Samantha.
I don't think profit matters. I don't think profit is an issue.
That's you, Pat, I believe.
Yes.
Pat, what's your opinion of the?
I don't know what she's talking about doing. If it's transporting hazardous waste, it's not from her own household, then there are a bunch of issues.
So
It doesn't matter whether she's getting paid or not.
Can we give Samantha just a few minutes to kind of give us a background of what she's wanting to do?
Oh, is she here?
Yeah, she just popped in.
Oh, I see.
Sorry.
Aye.
Hi.
Samantha, go ahead and explain your goals, so that several of the committee members will understand more thoroughly.
Absolutely. I am wanting to hold neighborhood household has waste collection events. Um, Potentially every Saturday or hidden neighborhood. Yes, I realize that has been
Samantha.
cannot take waste from. Yes.
Yeah, you were breaking up pretty bad. It seems to be a little bit better now, but we missed the first sentence or two.
She should start over. I couldn't understand any of it.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
This is better.
Okay. All right. Thanks. I am wanting to host household has waste collection events by neighborhood, a different neighborhood every Saturday morning. And I had previously talked to the Division of Waste Management about this, and just keeping a waste log stating someone's name, their contact information, the type of waste, the volume of that waste, having a field scale there with me. And yes, I would be charging. I'm not even sure what that would look like yet. I had also asked Metro has been to, potentially charge me to dispose of the waste properly, and I would be doing a lot of the front end, making sure that everything is properly segregated, labeled, properly containerized. I have all of the credentials to do this. I am certified through the Institute of Hazardous Materials Management. I'm a CHMP, and I work with industrial clients to make sure that their waste is characterized and disposed of or recycled properly. So I do this, but on an industrial level. I have thought about the expenses that I would incur, because initially the initial idea was just to do this, for free or for goodwill or whatever. But I'm going to be incurring some expenses, and also if someone has just moved into a residence and they want me to come out to their home and take their waste, I have no problem doing an individual appointment either. And if someone needs to, there are other services offerings that would come about to, like official request of SDS sheets, for someone who has something and they want full disclosure on the chemical composition of that. There are other offerings, but the neighborhood collections is what I would be asking for help from Metro has been in order to conduct. And I realized that there would be a charge, like Metro has been would charge me, and rightfully so. But also I know that just from talking to people about this idea, a lot of people have a very large stash, a wide variety of hazardous chemicals in their home. And I would not want someone in I don't want to leave out lower income neighborhoods. And so I'm working on ideas to get, funds for those neighborhoods too, because I wouldn't want someone to not have this service, because I think it's really beneficial, and I would not want someone to not be able to take advantage of this type of thing based on their ability to pay or not. So the idea is find a way to make this a service that everybody can take advantage of, because it is going to save people, it's going to make homes safer. It's going to educate the public. And I think that that is invaluable, because people need more waste education. So I think building on that educational aspect of it is something that I'm very interested in. The environmental stewardship aspect of that, and just also making people aware of what they're exposing themselves to with some of these common household chemicals, or things that are stashed in their basement or garage or whatever, and they may or may not know exactly what some of it is.
Sandra, I truly commend your passion for this effort, but for some of us who are, I guess, 30 years into the waste industry, some of what we're trying to do concerns us and goes against a lot of what we've been taught. And Pat, maybe it's time now that where you could address the legal side of things.
Well,
I have a clarifying question. What is it we're being asked? Because I want to hear all this information in the context of what the ask is, please.
What was that, Sarah?
Yes.
Yeah, Sarah.
Okay.
Lynn.
Okay. Yeah, I was just asking for permission to bring Household Has Waste to Metro Has Been, and I was asking for Metro Has Been to charge me a reasonable amount for me to bring it there and do all of that front end work. And so a disposal charge that's reasonable. And then I was also asking for openness to collaborate. I haven't done all of the research that I had wanted to just yet, but so far I have found one household has waste transport service that is run by a municipality, Phoenix, Arizona. They're doing a pilot household has waste transport program, and so far I've reached out. I have like beginnings of conversations, because I would really like to know how that is working out for them. I'm trying to figure out like what how they are measuring the benefits of that program. So far I've not found a whole lot as far as municipalities running this type of program. Also, I know that Metro Has Been, it cannot take from a business. So I had addressed that. Pete and I had spoken about that as well early on, and I wanted to have a detailed, very thorough waste log and system of tracking waste. And so every container that I take possession of, every container that I am bringing, I want to have a log and have, where the waste came from, like who it came from, their contact information, what waste it is, and the volume of that waste. And obviously, date and time. And, I think if you guys were willing to work with me on this, maybe on a weekly basis, someone could take 10, 20 minutes and, randomly reach out to the individuals that I picked up from on the previous Saturday, just to make sure that, just to confirm those details. So I think that that would be one way to make sure that the waste is coming from residences rather than a business.
That's helpful. Thank you.
If I could, and Samantha and I have talked about this quite a bit. Yes, it is a big concern for us to be taking chemicals. It is a household hazardous materials site, and thus that's how we operate with the limited amount of regulations that we have. Once it comes from a business, then it becomes a regulated waste, in which case we're not set up to do that. So my concern has always been because we're not taking it directly from the household resident hand to hand. There's an intermediary in there, is that, are we accepting a regulated waste? And we've already got our hands smacked once by the state because somebody snuck some stuff in on us, and they were actually in an enforcement action. So that is my concern about the intermediary between this. I do commend Samantha for her passion on this, and maybe there's a way to work through this to where you're not dealing with us, you're dealing with our vendor directly. And they can handle the billing and stuff. But I'll let Pat speak to this because I know this is Pat's background. Pat's an environmental attorney. Pat, I'll let you give your qualifications here to speak, and maybe this can be very helpful to Samantha.
Well, I would commend Samantha for her motivation. But there are some regulatory hurdles that I think you would not be able to navigate. There are issues that you would, if you're planning on picking this up from household to household, you're effectively a hazardous waste transporter, as defined in the regs. The DOT also has a set of regs that would apply to, that's Department of Environmental Protection would require a permit to transport hazardous waste. DOT has its permit requirements. The county, you would effectively be a waste hauler, and that would trigger a permit requirement. There may be other, that's what occurs to me at first blush. Not that you don't know what you're doing.
Oh, no,
It's
no,
just,
may I speak? I did reach out to the Kentucky EPA's hazardous waste branch, and they confirmed that I wouldn't need an EPA ID number to transport this type of waste. And I also did reach out to DOT. I have filed to get a DOT number, but I don't foresee myself transporting more than that 10,000 pound threshold. I know that the transportation cabinet, I've spoken with them at length as well, and regarding getting a state MC number and an MC number, like a federal MC number. I don't think that the quantities would go beyond, for a neighborhood load. I don't foresee them going beyond 10,000 pounds. If I ever did get to that point, I would absolutely, get those other permitting requirements fulfilled. And I do also realize that that Louisville has a truck license, for haulers, and there are different local requirements. So I have reached out to the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, the federal DOT, and FMCSA, the Kentucky Division of Waste Management Hazardous Waste Branch. And so I have all of those requirements straight. Like, I know what I would need and would not need.
well, what
I
you
have a,
need
I have a question.
is a letter from the hazardous waste branch that authorizes you in writing to do what you propose to do. You would also need a letter from DOT authorizing you. In the absence of a permit, the only thing I think that would protect you from an enforcement action would be correspondence specifying what you want to do, and that you're permitted to do it from both of those agencies as well as Jefferson County. Now, there may be other considerations. I don't want to discourage the effort. It's just, I don't want you to get in trouble.
Yeah, I don't want to get in trouble either.
You can get verbal, depending on what staff member you talk to, you can get verbal authorizations for a number of things. I never trust those.
Pat, that's a good point, and that's what I was going to bring up too. Depending on who you talk to at the state, and depending on what division they're in, you can get different answers for different things, and they may or may not understand. And until we have something in writing, we really can't even pretend to know what we're even talking about. Because so what the ask is for what? I mean, if you've got the proper permits already, you can find an environmental company. You don't really even need Metro for anything. You could do your own thing.
But rounding this material up and taking it to a recycler or a disposal facility involves exactly the same issues that I mentioned.
I think here, one of the biggest questions is residential waste, household hazardous materials isn't regulated the same. But when I think Samantha would pick that up, then it becomes a regulated material and I can't do it. Now she can pick it up and it's not regulated, but she's not necessarily going to be able to transfer it because it's regulated at that point. Would that be correct, Pat?
Well, as soon as she takes control of somebody else's waste, it's not household hazardous waste.
Yeah, that's my point.
Okay, so because I had forwarded Pete my correspondence with the hazardous waste branch, and I should just clarify with them and like make sure that they understand, because it sounds like you guys feel like I should have an EPA ID number, which that's very reasonable. Is that what you're saying?
If you forwarded that information, we can look at it as a committee and possibly get back to you at the next meeting. But I admire your efforts, but I caution you not only with regard to permitting, but also the liability. You want to make sure you have plenty of insurance in place, because one little mistake when you're dealing with that can cost several $1,000s. Would you agree, Pat?
Yeah, I think she needs a good lawyer too.
Well, we'll look at the paperwork and hopefully have an answer for you at the next meeting.
Okay, I can reach out to, yeah, absolutely. I will reach out to DOT as well and get some correspondence.
I actually would like to see everything about this discussion documented, like, the equivalent of a business plan or whatever, so everybody's on the same page as to what we're discussing and nobody's imagination can get carried away. But I have to agree that there's a lot of challenges here, and we're trying to protect you as much as the environment.
I appreciate that as well. I do. I'm not interested in being non-compliant.
Understood.
My interests lie in furthering my own education, and I am, at this point, very interested in quantifying, like creating measurable benefits for everyone involved, whether that be Metro, myself, and community members. And I think, from what, like, the only feedback that I've gotten so far has been really positive. And so, what I do for a living is solve transportation and environmental compliance issues. And so I feel like I'm well equipped to tackle these types of issues. Like I can find a solution and be in compliance. So thank you, by the way.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah. Any other comments?
Yeah, Pat, Brian Slade, I just had two questions. In addition to federal and state, wouldn't there be a Jefferson County letter of approval from an attorney in Jefferson County allowing this activity? And
I thought I mentioned that initially, but if it didn't come through, I certainly intended to.
Okay. And the second thing, I've read what Kendrick has written, and I've read those rules. It's my understanding that has been in Louisville is just for the use of private residents. And if it were a business enterprise, would that even qualify to use has been? Pete, do you know the answer to that?
No, that's been the big question as to whether or not that this can run. I've made that clear that it is basically residential waste that site can accept. The question I think Samantha was posing was whether or not it's still residential waste if she picks it up and brings it to us. And my concern is that once she picks it up, it becomes regulated. We have to take it.
Well, let's not forget that you guys are also on our permit too. So there's a WM permit that's involved in everything that we're talking about here, because that is on our property.
Well, thanks for bringing that up, because that is something that I didn't even think about. Thanks, Marie.
Yeah, and I think too, Pete, that like when the whole reason was built is it's purpose built to store household hazardous waste, and that's the whole reason that place works is they can store stuff on site until a very large container of it is full, and then can dispose of a cubic yard of it instead of 1 or 2 bottles, and that's predicated on the fact that it is only household hazardous waste. So that's something that we definitely need to ensure that we're not going to run into a compliance issue ourselves. Even though, if Samantha only brings in stuff from households and can document that very well, it depends on how the state classifies that. If she's the one transporting it, if it becomes, a business's waste instead of, still household.
I know this is just one example, but about a month ago, I called from a 92-year-old woman's household to the has-been site because she had some household hazardous waste, and they would not allow me to bring it. It had to be she or a family member. So they did tell me that just within the last month or so.
All right. Any other comments? Well, we'll hope to have an answer for you next meeting, and we'll move on in the agenda. I think the next.
Should I send correspondence? Just send it to Pete.
Yes.
Yeah, any communication you want to send, just send it to Pete, and Pete will get it distributed amongst the committee members.
Thanks, Samantha.
Thank you, Samantha.
Thank you.
Thank you for making us think harder about the folks who can't get that stuff there themselves.
I couldn't hear you, Sarah Lynn. What did you say?
I said I appreciate that we're being challenged to think a little harder about how do we meet the needs of people who can't transport their own materials.
I was just thinking of the same thing, Sarah Lynn. What can we do about that?
I think that it's definitely a niche that maybe nobody has come up with as far as being able to do. I think it could be a very successful business. To be honest with you, it's just a matter of how it can be done. And I think Samantha's working on that solution. So quite the entrepreneurial spirit.
Hey, Pete, one other question I had. Is this at the right decisional location, or should this be a 109 board discussion?
Well, this actually went to the 109 board first.
It did?
And the 109 board wanted the advisory committee, because of its technical expertise, to be able to weigh in on it.
Got it. Yeah, I appreciate it
that's
for
where
those
we're at.
comments very much. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Hearing none, we can move on. Is Peter Irvin on the call?
Actually, he is not. I meant to take that off of his name off of the agenda. I can kind of give a really brief explanation as to what took place.
Okay, the Kentucky Supreme Court opinion update from Mr. Pete Flood.
Yes, sir. So, as many people know, that KRS was changed in the way that the Waste District operated here in Jefferson County. There was some legal action back and forth to the district court, to appeals court, and eventually to the Kentucky Supreme Court. And this has been probably a 2-year or so process. So the opinion of the court came out recently, and we just wanted to let everybody know what the results was. And what I will say is that this is the reasoning, but the Kentucky Constitution, Section 156A, permits the legislature to classify cities in a number of bases, but requires that all legislation relating to cities of a certain classification shall apply equally to all cities within the same classification. In 2017, the legislature amended KRS Chapter 109 to give home rule cities located in a county containing a consolidated local government certain rights with respect to the waste management district in the county. The question we must resolve is whether the amended statute complies with the requirements of 156A, and the Supreme Court held that it did not. Basically what it came down to was that it treated Jefferson County differently than the other 119 counties in the state. And since it was being treated differently, that it was unconstitutional. So the court has remanded it back down to the district court to have it finalized. I'm not real sure how that works, but at this point, the case is resolved, and I have the reading of that from the Supreme Court. If anybody wants it, please shoot me an email and I can send it to you. But I just wanted to give you guys an update on that. The board received an update at its last board meeting from Peter Irvin. And I'll be willing to take questions, and I may be able to answer them and I may not.
Can you clarify the practical implication, please? Or illustrate with examples?
Well, in what the legislation did was have that the waste district would have to, I did a lot, but one of them would be that any regulation that the waste district passed here would have to also be passed and approved by each individual home rule city, which would have been about 82 something cities. And that actually was, against the power that was set out in 109 for the waste districts across the state. An example of this, and I know that this kind of was the impetus, but not the end reason for the lawsuits, but one of them was the regulation that the district approved that required yard waste to be collected in certain containers and instead of plastic bags. So in this case, this was one that that regulation would have had to been approved by 82 small cities for it to take effect in their small city. So that would be my best way to explain that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Guess that's it on that topic. I don't have the agenda in front of me. Bruce, what was the next thing there?
The next thing is the variable rate pricing.
Okay, on the variable rate pricing, we took this to the board and we had a discussion. And I think, and if I'm mixing up my meetings, committee meetings, and this is what took place at our last one, I apologize. But in the end, I believe that what has been decided is that we would that I would meet with all the individual waste haulers and work with them on how we can do this. It was generally agreed to, and I think, can you go to the next slide? It was generally agreed to that these were the things that we should be asking information for in our annual reporting. But I think that there's some nuances in here and little things that we need to talk with the people that report it to make sure that we're going to be asking the right things and things that can actually be answered. So I just wanted to come back and give that report to the committee after we took it to the 109 board. Bruce, did I explain that correctly?
I think you did. In looking at the information being requested, I'm sure you're going to have to present to the waste haulers, what requires this to be submitted to them, because there's a lot of, company proprietary information involved that we're entrusting with, in the 109 board. Not that you've ever let us down. It's just information we normally don't freely hand out. So
I understand. But yeah, that's the gist of it. And we're going to try to work out some of that. I'll be honest with you, it's been a very hectic month. And we've been a little preoccupied over here. So I've not been able to make that happen yet, but hopefully we'll get that done soon. The next reporting period is actually February 1st of next year. So it's not like we're crunched for time on this, but we definitely do want to keep this one on the burner so that we can do what we need to do come next reporting time.
the next item on the agenda, I believe, is the subcommittee reports. Well, do we have any items of new business that were not on the agenda that we need to go over?
There were none at the time of the agenda being created.
Hearing none, that will go to the reports on the residential / C&D subcommittee meeting. I was not able to attend, but I look forward to hearing about the shingled asphalt tour. Sandra, are you in the meeting?
Yes,
Can
yes.
you give us an overview, please?
Actually, Greg and a few others were there also. I thought it was excellent. When we look at other people's work, it's always much more complicated when we get the details than what we see. And I had a much better appreciation after the tour at how complicated it is to deal with the individual components and strengths of asphalt. Greg, who asked a lot of great questions in the question and answer period, might want to give his contribution too.
All right.
I think maybe you're talking about
Cat.
Adam.
No, Adam was there also.
Okay. I came in on a wing, so Maybe I missed it.
I don't think it was me, right?
Oh, I'm sorry.
When was it? When was the tour?
Last Tuesday.
Okay,
It's
no,
last Tuesday.
I did not. I was not attended. I wasn't in town.
Brian
Oh, I'm
Slater.
sorry.
There was a lot going on in August, apparently, a lot.
Apparently so.
Yeah.
I was there. I can talk about it a little bit.
All right.
Go right ahead.
I thought it was very informative also to see the different testing procedures and stuff that that they are going through in order to create a good asphalt mix, the different types of aggregates and variables that went into it. I think they talked a lot about putting recycled shingles in asphalt mix. Talked about coming up with mixes that would that used responsibly, or putting a responsible amount of recycled shingles into the asphalt mix would work and would create a product that I think they could use in the future. They said that in the past they had an issue with people trying to add, or just the calculations they were using for the amount of liquid asphalt that they got out of the shingles was somewhat incorrect, and by assuming that, it caused some faulty asphalt, which in turn created, I think, a negative stereotype about putting shingles in asphalt. I think these guys are coming up with ways to change that calculation method, and also determine a responsible amount of shingles that can be added to the mix where it will not compromise the integrity of the asphalt. Things that they're working towards, they spoke positively, in my opinion, about being able to put recycled shingles in their asphalt mix. So in my opinion, I thought it was a very, very informative and very positive meeting as far as continuing to try to get more shingles recycled and back in the asphalt mix.
Actually, one of the other things that came up, right now, the specifications tend to talk about what the ingredients are and the standards for the ingredients going into the mix. What they're looking at is a different way of looking at standards, so that when bids go out, instead of saying you're going to have so much of each of these ingredients, they're going to be looking at what they're trying to accomplish in their final product. And that allows for a much greater use of substances in the mix that will ameliorate some of the problems that they've had in the past. So there are lots of changes that they look like they're anticipating in the industry.
If I could, Sandra, Sandra's exactly right. And I think the key here is that they're implementing a new testing procedure that if you're meeting that testing procedure in brittleness and durability, they're letting the mad scientists do a little bit of work there and using their imagination. And we did talk quite a bit about shingles being one of those, but even like porcelain, rubber, there's so many different variables that you can put into this, that this new way of looking at it will allow, I guess, a little bit more flexibility to the manufacturer as long as they meet the specifications. So one of the other things that I took away from it was that using shingles in asphalt is not any more expensive than not using them. So I think that the economic impact of it, concern is really not something that is an issue, whereas I think we all kind of thought that would be an issue. So all of those things were pretty good. I was really excited about it and thought that the meeting went exceedingly well. And I think with that, we were going to kind of work on really the going forward was we were going to try to work locally first and try to get the metro government and maybe the home rule cities to start looking at including it in our specs, because the general thing is that people will tend to use the state specs just because they don't have that experience. So they're just going to go with that. So we need to just maybe educate locally, build confidence, and then kind of work our way back to the state DOT and get this done. Because even at 1%, 2% of the mix of asphalt would mean the world for recycling shingles. And we would go back to hopefully having 3 to 4 shingle recyclers in town instead of just one that's basically on life support. There was another discussion that was taking part of that, and that was based upon our recycled concrete, some of the questions around that, which was also one of the items that, 3 items that we want to talk about and focus on first. And the good news is that there isn't any reason why recycled concrete couldn't be used in sub-base. It's more of a education and knowledge and trust issue that we have to get through to the engineers that would be speccing out the project. So again, it would come back to our education and trust. Would that be accurate, Adam?
Yes, definitely.
I wanted to add that in the engineering world, the stereotype is the highway engineers are the most conservative about taking risk and doing new things. And therefore, I think it's super important to keep doing what you're doing, which is provide the data. And it's the performance data that I think will be most compelling to them. So things like load bearing is going to speak to them.
I agree.
Any other comments?
I would like to just say I hadn't heard about it. I would have loved to attend. So if we ever have another one, maybe I just missed it somehow, but I would love to attend that or the concrete or anything else. So if I could get on any lists or if we could let everybody know, I appreciate it.
Well, Pete, you worked through that whole scenario, and now you have slides that tell us all of this.
Yeah.
Well,
Sorry, I forgot they were.
I'm not controlling the slideshow. So yeah.
No, very good. It sounded like
Karen
a
was
very
not aware
interesting
of
point.
these. I threw these slides in here at the last minute, so I'm sure Karen wasn't even aware that these slides were there.
Well, I appreciate them, and maybe we can, I know you guys shipped out your last slideshow after the last meeting. It would be nice to have these to read through, because I think it's a very informative meeting, and I wish I could have been there.
Yeah.
Actually,
you touched on the economic impact, and I think that's going to be a key to it as
we
well.
just got another, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. We just got another chat. And I would hope that if we do any future for any committee or subcommittee, that we would invite everybody to be present, because I agree with both of them. It was a very informative meeting.
Excellent. It's a great idea.
Honestly, I thought that it had, I actually raised this multiple times at multiple meetings that if anybody wanted to attend, to contact me, but I'm not sure that an actual meeting invite included everybody, but it's a good point. And we need to make sure that we do, because the more that we all learn about this thing, the easier the decisions are in the end.
Very good. I know there was one other commodity that we were talking about in the subcommittee, Sandra, and that was the gypsum board recycling. And I know we have one individual on the call that's a little bit more familiar with it than maybe all of us are. And I don't know if Mr. Smith would be willing to talk about it a bit. You out there, Matt? Certainly he didn't hang up on me.
He is
He
actually.
might have forgotten to turn his mute button on.
No, I'm here.
There he is.
Can you give us a quick overview on gypsum board recycling, Matt?
Yes, absolutely. Most, like Pete said last time, most gypsum board is being used for agricultural uses. And it's generally in markets that have lots of agricultural. Northern Indiana is one of them. And most of the gypsum board that is being recycled is coming from new manufacturers. Not a large percentage of it is coming from what I call C&D type recycling, because you cannot test each piece of drywall to know what is on it or not on it. I mean, it would have to be new construction, not green board, meaning not from the bathrooms, water resistant, that type of stuff. There's so many different types of drywalls out there that it's making more and more difficult for people to recycle it and know what they've got. But there are people doing it. It's expensive, and it's generally in the agricultural communities.
And you
So
said
what you're saying is it's pre-consumer usually?
Yes, I don't know
okay.
anybody that's doing post-consumer. New construction only, because that's pre-paint, pre-drywall, and you have a
Mhm.
better chance of controlling what's going into the stream.
Mhm.
Matt, I
Thank you.
would also add, and it's something that I've been researching somewhat, and there are other uses for it, even into concrete, and I think that has a little bit, just a little bit less requirement, and because the concrete is going to encapsulate any kind of issues that you might have with like lead or whatever. So yes, I agree with Matt. That's the primarily the method that people uses. It's not very well used here, but it's possible to generate a market for that. And clean drywall is probably about 14% of C&D loads, but in some places it's much higher. So it's one of those things that, yeah, we haven't started to focus on it, but yet there are uses for it that, if we can kind of develop the market, it makes it much more likely that we can have a C&D processing facility.
Pete, I had not heard it has been used for concrete. We have recycled a fair amount of drywall in our past. The Omni Hotel was the last job that we did in downtown Louisville, and the best compost that I've ever had. You did it, except I had everything that year with me, because when you it it's soft and it smelled like rotten eggs within a mile and a half of our building.
Gotcha. You're dropping in and out, Matt, but I think the concern was odor with some of the drywall.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think there was especially certain drywalls that created a lot of issues with methane, I believe, and that in particular, even Ralph Avenue at one point had a lot of drywall in there, and I think it was drywall from China that was a big part of that issue. But
That's my
I don't
understanding
know.
as well.
I think that's one of the topics that we have to get into a little bit more. We went with the shingles and the concrete first because they were kind of the lower hanging fruit.
I'm definitely open to helping here with the drywall and trying to figure out how to do it better. We've learned through the hard knocks a little bit, and would love to improve on that.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, Matt. I appreciate it. Any other
Yes, sir.
committee members? Hearing none, we can move on to an update on the ICI self-haul subcommittee. And I believe, W. Greg?
Yes, but we did not meet this week. So there was nothing changed as far as I know. Pete, you can address that a little bit better than I, but we sent a message out. Nobody had anything to add, and there was no progress from what we had from last month. That's my understanding.
You're right, Greg. I think that the task that has been given to the committee is that we do a little bit of research on other cities in the self-haul realm. and work with the state and federal EPA on concerns over contaminated material and liability. And that's very brief. It's probably not the best way to put it. But that task is still there on us, and my apologies. We have just not been able to get any traction on that quite yet. So that's the reason why we really didn't have the meeting.
That's a good summary, yeah.
All right, thank you. Next, we have a staff report, enforcement and licensing update.
I would like to introduce to you guys our new compliance and enforcement supervisor, Whitney Hickman. And Whitney, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hello,
Okay.
everybody.
So Whitney's going to give us the report for enforcement.
Hello. Currently, we have just completed our licensing where we have 79 complete applications. We have 52 haulers. We have 21 recycling, and we have 6 transfer station, landfill, and compost facility haulers. And we currently are going to send out 18 NOV letters for the people that hasn't submitted any applications yet. For our camera operations, we have currently 86 active cameras out across the metro. We have from the photos that we've collected, we have 23 citations and we have 42 violations. We currently have done 4 impounds, and we have 3 people that has come in and paid their citations. We have 8 upcoming possible impounds, and we have 5 citations without impounds. If you could go to the next slide, this is our most recent impound that we had. And this was an impound from our Fairdale Recycling Center. It's a big hotspot for our dumpers, and this particular individual came multiple times to this recycling center and dumped, and we was real adamant about catching this person. He was kind of tough to catch, but finally was able to serve the citation and get him to come and bring his truck to us, and we were able to impound yesterday.
Had a girl.
What was the material mostly like that he illegally dumped, Whitney?
He did a lot of yard waste and C&D material as well. It was 2 people.
Yeah. And what I would add, and thank you, Whitney, you did well, is the Fairdale site has been a very big challenge for us. And we've actually think that we've kind of started to get a little bit of control over it. There has been much less dumping there. We hope that that's from our efforts. But it's not the only spot that we've got, and a lot of these impounds are from across the city, and that we're looking. What I would add is that we keep a website, louisvilleky.gov/illegal dumping. Correct me if I'm wrong, Karen. And we have people that we're looking for. And if you guys see any of those people, please give us a heads up who they are, where they're located. I will say this, it's not always, a license plate doesn't always do it, because it seems like about 25 to 35% of all the people that we catch with a license plate, it doesn't belong to that vehicle, or they don't live where the vehicle was registered. And that is a pretty big problem. And then obviously the people that we don't get a license plate for, we put it out on social media, and we get a lot of help with people calling and telling us where these people are. But the good part about it is with like next door, people know that we're out there looking. And that is part of the impact that we're trying to do in deterrence. And we feel like that we've made a difference over the years. And with all these new cameras, once we get a couple more people, we feel like we're going to be able to really start moving them around a lot more. And we've been short-staffed just like everybody else, but things are moving in the right direction. Whitney is doing a very good job as a new supervisor and trying to get us up to speed.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Whitney, and welcome. One question I have for you, and maybe you and Pete. The notices of violation, can you give us some kind of idea what's the most, what's the worst, and what's the spectrum of the NOVs, Pete?
So the NOVs are basically failure to license at this point. You know, we have annual reporting, annual licensing that is due July 31st. There's a 5-day grace period in there. And, you know, we always email, send letters, and do everything that we can to make sure that we get people in here beforehand. But some people, for some reason, they're perennial. They just don't get it done. Or a lot of times what will happen is that the person that completed the application last year no longer works there. So we don't have any idea that it's not getting to the right people. So generally, we try to work with people. If they're working with us, we will be working with them. It's when people, sometimes when an NOV arrives, that's when they'll start to pay attention. And an NOV is not a fine at that point. We always give a correction period, and that will get almost all of them. But inevitably, we'll have one or two that just don't get it done, and we end up having to issue a citation, which includes fine of $100 a day until they get it, or they have to quit operating. So, yeah, is that what you were looking for, Bruce? I understand.
Absolutely, yes. Anyone that's Maria will understand completely. Yeah, that just the term NOV raises the hair on the back of my neck. So just curious as to what these amounted to. So thank you very much.
I've got a question too. Are any of these coming from out of the county that we know of? People?
Well, it depends upon how you want to say out of the county. They're all operating in the county, but their main offices may be in Florida or St. Louis or someplace like that has to.
No, I meant more like is somebody from Bullitt County coming up to here to dump stuff off because they can't do it as easy in their county or something. That was my question more. Like surrounding counties.
Greg, I apologize. Are these people coming from out of the county?
My question more is, are they coming from a surrounding county like Fairdale? Do they come up from Bullitt County to dump or not? Is any of that happening?
Generally, I'm going to say no. We've had some people that in far southern southwest Jefferson County that live out, you know, it's kind of like a peninsula out there, the county. I would say out of all of them, we've had maybe 3 or 4 were out of the county. It's a misnomer, I think, that people come into the city to illegally dump. And I think we hear it a lot that it's people from Indiana, but generally people don't go far. They go where they're comfortable. And we tracked it at one point pretty hard, and we found that people generally don't go but a quarter of a mile to dump from where the waste was generated. Now, what we do have is people that may have Indiana tags or something like that are doing contractor work here in town. And so the waste was generated here and dumped here, but their vehicle may be out of town.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Hearing none. Karen, are you going to give us an education update? Or is that Pete as well?
Yes, I'm here. There we go. Okay, so I wish I had more things to talk about besides recycling carts, but that has been our life for a few months now. So, but I did put these wonderful pictures we got from some very happy residents when they got their carts. The one on the left came from just a person in District 8 that sent it to the councilwoman and me. But the one on the right is Scott Render, who works for Metro, and he was very happy to get his cart. He knew about everything because he works for Metro, and pestered me a long time before we got our deployment going. So anyway, we do have, I'd say, a lot more happy people than we have upset people, but upset people are often the loudest. So we're just trying to stay positive and keep going. But I did want to give a little bit of an update and answer questions if anyone has any, because I know some of you live in the area and or in the urban services district and are maybe experiencing your own issues with this. But we are in the middle of our second deployment from the contractor. So so we tried right after the first deployment to kind of tackle some of the misses on our own, because we knew there had been some issues and not everyone that should have received a cart received one. Other issues like maybe more carts were dropped where they shouldn't have been, and we were trying to do some retrievals, but we quickly found that our staff, especially at the time, summer's a hard time for waste collection and vacations and of course just staffing issues in general and sicknesses and COVID, everything. So we learned quickly that we really couldn't tackle that second deployment very well on our own, and so we basically had to get everything, get all our data put together in a good way for the contractor to take on that what they termed the cleanup phase. So that started last week and has continued on to this week. And so more carts are being deployed at a little bit faster than we could take care of. So I'm pleased about that. And I do feel that some of the calls and emails have slowed down. Or my emails, I'm getting a lot more saying, I finally got my cart. Thank you. So that's basically it. There was a Career Journal article digitally, I think on Friday, maybe last week, but it was printed Sunday, I think, and it went through a lot of just kind of the logistics and some, it was pretty accurate. So it maybe didn't answer some questions that people still have, but at least it was informative. We have found some people are confusing certain things, like they are worried that their carts they already had won't be collected from after January 1st, but that's not the case. Those aren't, only those small 18-gallon bins are what we refer to when we say that we're not going to collect from those at the end of the year. So everybody has a few months, we have a few months to make sure we get carts to everybody that should have qualified for one, and anybody else who believes they need an additional, or maybe they didn't qualify for some reason, has that time to figure out what they're going to do as far as purchasing one, or maybe using a container like people tend to use for yard waste, like a 30 to 40 gallon container with handles and a lid, because that is acceptable too, as long as it's labeled recycling, so they know to collect that. So we're getting there, and I'll just stop and ask if anyone has any specific questions. And I think that's my last slide, so I'll just go ahead and stop sharing that.
I do.
Yeah.
I was forced to clean up my desk to figure out which week was my week. So that had some value, but a lot of people won't clean up their desk. They long ago didn't realize what that card was, and we hope put in the recycling bin, but maybe the trash. And I'm wondering, will there be any subsequent educational activities And also before I got desperate enough to clean up my desk, I did eventually, afterwards, I happened to open up the Recycle Coach app and I found what day was mine. But I'm wondering, will you do more education to help people to keep track of when their week is? And will it mention the Recycle Coach app as another way to keep it in your pocket?
Yes, we are, well, I will say the grant, we still have another mailer that we could do, and the Recycling Partnership was wanting us to do that soon, maybe September-ish. We kind of held them off a little bit just because of the issues that arose, because they normally wanted it to be like a top contaminant card that was educational. But we kind of wanted to step back for a little bit, hold on and see what our biggest issue would be. And I agree with you, Sarah Lynn, that people aren't quite grasping the calendar. So it may be that we need to have that last bit of educational funds that we have for another mailer, that it hit that calendar part of it again. And, we consistently are pushing out Recycle Coach for people to, to use, to keep up with the schedule. And I think it's now more than ever, just because, typically people can remember your day. But I know I find myself having to kind of think like, okay, what is it, a recycling week or not? So I think that's grounds for people to really get that app like we want them to.
Yeah, we're surrounded by multifamily, and you certainly can't go by who's put their carts out because they're not paying attention,
Yeah.
I may be old school, but if you are going to do another postcard, make it small, a calendar for the whole year with the dates and some sort of thing might be helpful, because it's nice to stick it on the wall. That's what I've done with the little postcard you have, but that only goes for a couple months, but it is nice. I'm like I say, I'm old school.
I have a designed calendar for the whole year. And I think it went by fiscal year when I made it. And it's been on my to-do list to update that so it can at least get on the website to be printable.
Right.
So thank you. I do agree. And also just to let staff that take phone calls and anybody, to be able to have that right there at the ready, so we know what week is what.
Yeah.
I would also add another opportunity there for them is to use the My Louisville tool on louisvilleky.gov. They can type in their address and see all of the different services that are provided to them.
But yeah, it currently says your day of the week and every other week with a link to the recycling website. So it won't help to know which week is which.
And I also think about people like my now deceased grandmother. She's not using the web. My parents aren't using the web. So, we've got to think about that too.
Yeah, it's always been on my list in going through all of this as we planned. To have a lot of flyers available at community centers and libraries as well. Mm-hmm. That sort of got put on the back burner for me just because for a long time, the libraries and community centers weren't even open.
Yeah.
So that was, but, trying to make sure we have enough printed material that even we can put in places for people to pick up or have council people can have so they could mail it if anyone asks and things like that. So. It is true. People do still like printed material. I do have a plan to, this kind of doesn't necessarily relate to the carts, but to education. When people get a cart, even a garbage cart, something we've never done, but as I saw the packets being attached to carts as they were delivered, it occurred to me that we could always attach a packet to a cart when they're purchased or, whatever people are doing. So I'm in the process of creating an educational piece that can be included in any garbage carts or recycling carts that are delivered. And our contractor Otto has agreed that they can do that and they can add that to any of them. So, and that to me is pretty important because it's before my time. I know there was a lot of discussion and work to try to figure out how to educate about cart maintenance, and it never really went anywhere. And I think that's a good time to include that, is if you're about to get a new cart, then maybe you just moved here and there wasn't one at your residence or something like that.
Good. Thank you, Karen. Any other comments? Hearing none, I guess we've come to the moment of the agenda where we're open to anybody from the public that has joined in on the call that may want to make a comment or ask a question. Hearing none. Again, I'd like to thank Samantha Troutman for her presentation, and we'll gather our thoughts together on that. Thank you, Mr. Smith, for going over some of the challenges of travel recycling.
No problem.
I've got one other quick question.
Sure, Greg.
Regarding contamination, like I've seen a lot of people on Nextdoor and different people talking. It's like, oh my God, how am I going to fit all my stuff in one cart for 2 weeks? Because I fill it up every week. And I'm afraid to ask them about, well, is all that stuff really recyclable? Because I don't want to get slammed back myself. So I'm just thinking this is a good opportunity for those people. I mean, I still see light bulbs and styrofoam and those big carts and all the things. So I think it's a good opportunity that when somebody says, how am I going to fit all my stuff in one cart, to sort of, I know you do it sometimes, like crush the cans, break up the boxes, but also like quit putting a large styrofoam in from your packages from Amazon and all that stuff too. So, just this could be a good opportunity to address contamination for those people. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Very good point.
Here's
Thank you.
another idea. Seattle, Washington, which probably by all accounts was the first to really get good at this stuff. And they came up with the term the Seattle stomp. And when people complained that their carts weren't big enough, they told them to do the Seattle stomp, and then it would fit in. And so we got to think of a word that would work with Louisville. I'll work on that. But if we could do something like that and put a little bit of fun into it, it might help.
Good idea. We'll think about it.
This is Sam. Hi, I think that's a great idea, putting fun into it. I was going to ask Karen when and if there was another tagging, like cart tagging study. I don't know what I want to call that right now, but when are you going to be doing that again? And is there anything that I can do to help you with that?
That pilot program, we actually have a follow-up to the Southside neighborhood that we're going to do on Monday morning. And so if you're interested in joining in just to watch how it works, I'll definitely email you and let you know. But we haven't really tackled, we did 3 pilot neighborhoods, and we did, so we'll eventually do a follow-up in Shawnee because we finished there, and but we've been trying to go a few months later and just check and see if the education stuck. So that's what this coming Monday is. It's just kind of a follow-up. So I'll email you about that.
Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you guys for hearing me out, and thank you for challenging me and giving me lots to think about and follow up on. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
This is Pat Stallard. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
My 5:30. I just want to, and I phoned in. I just now was able to connect. I've been trying to. I apologize for everyone. I'm just having computer problems.
Well, we appreciate it, Pat. You are still breaking up a bit, but it's good to hear from you, and we always certainly appreciate your insight. So.
If you, this is recorded, so if you missed some of it and want to go back and listen, you can view the recording.
Thank you.
Okay, the last item on the agenda, obviously, are the announcements. The next 109 board meeting will be next week, Wednesday the 25th from 5:30 to 7 p.m. The subcommittee meetings, residential/C&D subcommittee meeting will meet on Tuesday, September 14th from 2 to 3 p.m. Pardon me. And the ICI self-haul will meet on Wednesday, the 15th from 15 to 4:15 with the next advisory committee meeting on Wednesday, the 15th from 4:30 to 6 p.m. With that, that's the end of the agenda that we have for today. And I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by
Second.
Mr. Smith, and I have a second by
Second.
Mr.
Greg.
Zanuck. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. I want to thank all of you. And I appreciate everybody's efforts. Stay safe. This new Delta variant is somewhat worrisome, but just please stay safe, and we'll look forward to seeing you all next month.
Same here. Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.